Well, welcome to this special webinar from TRL looking at unlocking the Department for Transport's Green Light Fund with TRL Software. As you no doubt know, back in October, as part of the plan for drivers, the government set aside £70 million of extra funding to make signals more efficient, of which £20 million is the Green Light Fund to be used to tune up traffic signals to better reflect current traffic conditions and get traffic flowing. So let's find out what it means with our guests, TRL Software's Chief Scientist Chris Cattell and Account Director Paul May, and we'll spend the next half hour chatting through the money, what it means and how TRL can help. Now, the process is being managed, as you probably know, by the Transport Technology Forum, and if you go to its website, you can find out the thinking behind what's happening with the bidding process and some of the do's and don'ts in a webinar hosted by Darren Capes of the DFT. But we want to get into some of the more technical stuff. So, Paul, let's start with you then. Could you give us a brief overview of the funding pots available, who's eligible to apply and how they do it?
The three pots, the Traffic Signals Obsolescence Grant, TSOG as it's called. The purpose of that is really the O there is the clue, the obsolete element, and that's really to replace things that are coming to the end of their lifespan and no longer available. So the big one that's always mentioned is halogen lamps and being replaced by LEDs, and then you've got rusty poles and such like. That's a £30 million fund all told. 10 million of that will be sliced and given out to the authorities depending on their usual size of grant and all the equations that go into working that out. And it's open to all English local authorities except those in London. The Green Light Fund, which is the one that I think we're going to concentrate on today. This is the one that's designated, as you said in your introduction before I lost comms, that it's for tuning up signals to better reflect actual conditions and make congestion disappear, reducing congestion. That's £20 million, and that's a competitive fund, which has to be bid for by local authorities. Same eligibility, it is those English local authorities that are outside of London. And then the subsequent fund, the later one, and I'll just touch on that. That's not live yet. That's the Intelligent Traffic Management Fund, ITMF, and that's for the larger, more ambitious, innovative schemes where there will be grants of up to £2 million.
Okay, so you talked about local authorities applying for these. So what have TRL Software got to do with it?
Yeah, good question, and thanks for giving us the opportunity to talk about that today. We'd like to support local authorities in their bids. We have, in particular, focusing on the Green Light Fund. On the briefing recently on the LCRIG webinar, Darren Capes from the DFT went into great detail on what might be eligible for which pot, and for Green Light Fund in particular, Darren focused on upgrades of things like Scoot and Mover, and of course TRL has the unmatched heritage in those areas.
Okay, let's bring Chris in now. Chris, why do local authorities need to upgrade traffic management systems in the context, I guess, of the modern urban challenges that they face?
Morning. Well, when you think about asset management, you've got sort of a typical asset life cycle across planning, acquisition, actually utilizing your assets, maintaining them for the duration, ultimately then disposal. Within that, you sort of your typical traffic signal equipment, you're looking at having a utilization and maintenance window of anywhere between sort of 10, 15, up to 20 years. Although we all know that we've got network equipment out in the field, roadside, OTUs, etc., that have been there a lot more than 20 years. During that time, equipment will need to be replaced. So knocked down by drivers, vandalism, or plain equipment failure. There'll be hardware upgrades, possibly even comms upgrades. But equipment's only part of the challenge that you have there. The way in which you control your network, and you think about Scoot all the way back from the DEC alphas and OpenVMS as the host system for Scoot as it was, through to sort of your on-premises monolithic applications approach, through to sort of cloud hosting of today. As you move through your hardware renewals towards your end of useful life, or you park your Frankenstein builds from your spares, taking care of all of that gives you a sound foundation for maintaining business as usual. But authorities are expected to do more than just maintain business as usual. So on top of this, and where TRL can really bring to bear and help, is around not only potential for mover within your networks, but also then looking at making impact beyond those isolated junctions with Scoot. So where traffic signals sit close together, coordinating adjacent signals gives you a opportunity to coordinate. And through coordination, you reduce stops and delays and all of the good metrics of sort of pushing tin around your network. But what about enabling innovation opportunities for your authority, input to your strategic documentation goals, monitoring, but also, of course, the future of mobility for all modes, with a best-in-class tool for repeatable, reliable, sort of trusted results. You want to have the latest of Scoot in your control room, and that is what TRL can give you.
Now, I want to understand what the difference is between the Scoot that we first saw many decades ago and the Scoot we're talking about now.
Yeah, of course. So Scoot, split cycle offset optimization technique, a reflection of TRL's love for acronyms, capitalization, and everything else. TRL are the design authority and originator of Scoot, which up until 2016, 2017, we provided to the traffic signals companies as the exclusive distributors, who then made this part of their respective UTC systems. During this time, there was an ongoing program of research and development that saw multiple upgrades and enhancements to Scoot. So Scoot of early doors, late 90s or early 1980s onwards is very different to the Scoot of today. I think by far one of the biggest single changes made, aside to the optimization, the breadth and depth of the functionality for the network management, actually came in where able to make use of IP comms and then the timestamping. That really brought things much more into the modern day. And then our leap from being a on-premises server-based solution, some with OpenVMS or emulation thereof, to actually being entirely cloud native. And that has been significant. Now, as all research and development in enhancing the functionality of Scoot has come from us, we're uniquely placed not only for Scoot to continue to come from us here at TRL Software, but to also give the market and the local authorities confidence that all of the prior investment that's been made, not only in infrastructure, but skills and training, is the strong foundation through which TRL Software and Scoot is here and is here to stay and continue to evolve and develop with our continuous R&D program.
Okay, so I understand that it's very much more technically advanced than it was. What does that actually mean out on street for a local authority? What makes it a choice for them?
Okay, so advancements in technology and our user needs. That is a lovely question, so thank you. We talk about pushing tin around your network, minimizing stops and delays, or perhaps you want to maintain journey times on corridors. Well, there's a way to do that. Maintaining a saturation level for all routes and going, oh, we've squeezed an extra N% out of it, is sort of taking from one and taking from another in terms of reducing delay, adding delay. How about adding some green light optimized speed advisory data to your drivers, but not needing additional roadside hardware to go with that? Well, there's a way to do that, but that's only just getting started. There's the boring but still important part around the bug fixes that come with all software. in Scoot. So Scoot 7, that's the latest release. These are all fixed. You can find more out on trlsoftware.com website. But Scoot 7 is the first TRL only release which comes from us. And it broadens the toolbox for adaptive control and the changing needs of mobility. So rather than just focusing on the metal boxes that move around the network, it also takes into consideration a more equitable road space allocation, not only in terms of time, but also of space at your signalized junctions. So for your pedestrians, through pedestrian scoots, through your cyclists with early release, and then all of the safety benefits which come through and with that. There's a significant boost into the environmental credentials as well, delivered through GLOSA, so Green Light Optimized Speed Advisory, where actually in low flow traffic conditions, where you have network-wide coordination, the scaled up benefit of being able to provide that GLOSA information to drivers, HGV buses, heavy vehicles is actually quite significant. You scale that up at a town, at a city, at a regional level, and the emissions reductions that you start to see, as well as the fuel savings and the noise reduction, is significant. And so the advancements in technology are there for a reason. It's not just change and technology for the sake of it, or technology looking for a problem. And that is absolutely key in being user-led in what we research and develop.
Okay, Paul, can I bring you in? Because I'm interested in what Chris was saying about the money side of things there, which is one of the things I've come across in many, many years of working in and writing about ITS is that a lot of the solutions are great because they provide a societal benefit. But the issue is that there is a cost to the local authority, but the benefit goes kind of into society as a whole, and it's kind of fairy gold. There's nothing coming up on a balance sheet to say, well done, you've cut this amount of congestion, etc., etc. So how does investing in something like TRL Scoot system prove to be cost effective in the long run for local authorities?
Yeah, thanks, Paul. And yeah, that the fairy dust equations. There are equations that say how much congestion does cost the local and national economy, and it's a massive number. Yeah, when scaled up. So whilst as you say, it's kind of hard to make those tangible in any given area. You know, you spend £1 and you get this much back. There are equations out there. When it comes to the costs that we see, and we've done lots of research looking backwards, looking forwards, looking out to the market, we see we can offer significant savings to local authorities by splitting out the software and the hardware and the maintenance. We're just talking software, so we're providing an agnostic solution that sits on top of all equipment that are sufficiently modern to do the job, which means it gives more choice to local authorities about which equipment they have. They can choose the best equipment, the most cost-effective equipment, and it's those sorts of marginal and incremental savings that we can begin to enable by splitting out those elements, moving away from a proprietary lock-in, as it used to be called.
And so you mentioned we're talking about a software solution, but there's an awful lot of hardware on the roadside, and quite often it comes from lots of different suppliers. How can TRL Scoot be integrated into existing traffic infrastructure? What does the process look like? Is it difficult? Is it time consuming, or is it actually surprisingly seamless?
It is surprisingly seamless, and I would say that, wouldn't I? So as long as the equipment is modern enough to speak the language of UTC, the UG 405 protocol, then we can take the information from the controllers that are out there. And as Chris mentioned with modern comms networks, finally, IP networks are ubiquitous, so there isn't the enormous challenge of having to kind of hardwire everything to everything. The internet is our friend.
And Chris, did you want to pick up on any thoughts on that?
Yes. When you look at what happens within the market and the pace of change, and then the relative progress that we see. So you talk around the actual equipment itself. Standardization of equipment interfaces has been a great thing. One of the things that we've seen in Europe is the Talking Traffic program that works, and that gives a lovely model of having a national data clearing center for all of your traffic data. I think is something very much that the UK ought to be aspiring to. A key consideration that we made in talking with local authority users has always been their limitations in access to data, not only from Scoot, but more widely within their UTC or for their UTMC systems, and how the legacy models, particularly introduced by UTMC, along with costs, is disproportionately balanced against what they actually want to achieve versus what it costs them. And for a local authority that's being asked to do ever more today with less capital revenue funding than they've had previously, that's a real challenge. And so actually providing the open data portal as part of what we have with Scoot and with TRL UTC has been very, very successful and incredibly well received in making that data available. And I just can't help but think, you look back at the reporting which came at midway through COVID and looking at the recovery of traffic flow, everybody had to get data in different ways. It then took a massive effort and was a significant undertaking to standardize, to collate it all, and then report on what was actually happening.
Yeah,
it still just blows my mind that that level of effort with something that would be so easily standardized across industry could have just happened, and it didn't. And so asking the question of what do people actually want, as opposed to here you go, here's the solution, I'm not sure what your problem is, that's where we start from. And so that's a very good way to work, and why we want to help work with local authorities. Business as usual, future roadmap planning, ensuring that you have market confidence in the future of Scoot and what we're doing with that, and of course laying the foundations for the next round of funding, which comes in the spring. So pot 2, for example, under the Greenlight Fund, is a perfect springboard for them wanting to do more in the innovation space with us, and is something I'm really keen to talk more on at a later point, in particular around where AI features in what we've been doing.
And that will be when we come to look at pot 3, I guess, and some of the more experimental sides of things rather than here and now. But going back, Paul, to the here and now and the pot 2 money, tell me about any collaborations or partnerships that you've formed to support the adoption of your system, to give local authorities who often feel they need to be kind of second and use another authority as the example as to why they can go ahead with something new. What sort of collaborations have you had to get Scoot adopted?
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Collaborations. I see our customers first and foremost as collaborators, and I would nominate Transport for Greater Manchester and Stoke-on-Trent Council as the early adopters, and we've in the last 2-3 years we've grown our implementations there, adding features as we go. So I think as you say, you do need that collaboration. You need that those partners to prove the technology, and that is well proven now. When it comes to technology partners, we've worked with tons of collaborators to add even more value and bring even more benefits through to our Scoot customers. I can, listing off, we work with Amy and George Brown on the Glosa that Chris mentioned. We've worked with lots of innovative above ground detector companies, and that is a long list. I won't list them all in case I offend the ones I miss off. And then on the data side of things, we've worked with Waze for Cities, and that's been a great collaboration. They have a program whereby they sign up a deal with a local authority, and there's a kind of quid pro quo where the local authority gives roadworks information and such like, and then from Waze you get all of the Waze user generated data, and that's really valuable data, and it begins to tell us how healthy any particular stretch of network is working, and by analysing that, you can then use the Scoot to fine tune with that additional third-party data. And we're working with many data providers. We're also talking to Chris mentioned the talking traffic people in the Netherlands. We're talking to some of the providers of that system, and that really is cutting edge stuff. Looking forward to bringing that to the UK.
And of course, more closely to home, working with the Smart Mobility Living Lab in London, part of TRL. We are part of the innovation network and the innovation community there that brings early technology companies. So this is in the space of hardware, software. It's inclusive, importantly, of the automotive OEMs that in particular want to understand what the changing look of ITS and signal control looks like in the UK. And so we're getting to work closely with them in understanding what their products, service offerings and data looks like, as well as working with more national bodies in and around the development of standards. So there's an awful lot of different ways in which we collaborate. But by far, though, my favorite is our work with the Alan Turing Institute, because they just have the best people. And yes.
Fantastic. Right. We'll come back to summarize in a moment, but I'm just going to ask you, because the whole thing about when the £70 million of funding was announced back at the Conservative Party conference at the beginning of October, I remember reading all about it, and the thing that was coming through was, we are trying to make our transport network more efficient. It's not about just, as you mentioned, the boxes with wheels on each corner moving around. It's the whole of the transport ecosystem. So both of you, I'd like you to give your little summary of what you think TRL's vision for the future of the whole of urban mobility is, and how does the latest version of Scoot fit into that?
If I can quickly jump in before my esteemed colleague there. So fundamental to all of that is change. There's we've always done it this way and therefore it will always be this way. It just doesn't wash it when you come to look at what does future mobility look like. I can remember very young me holding a copy of Focus magazine in my hands and reading about how in the future my car, when I could drive, would fly. And that was for year 2000. That's come and gone. And it was only a few years that my car would be self-driving, but it's still not here. And so there's do we wait for the promises to come through, or do we actually do something about it? Well, you can't work with a promise that doesn't come to fruition. And so understanding the movement of people, goods, services, what your built environment looks like, seeing the fundamental shift in our urban centres that are more about out with the cars, in with the public transport, pedestrian, cyclist friendly, looking at countries that have done and pushed on with this. Paris, what have they done? And everyone went, that won't work. Well, they were brave, and wow, it worked. You go to the Netherlands, bike riding in the Netherlands was an incredible experience. But you look back to how it was in the 1970s, like, oh no, this will never work. And it's worked perfectly. It needed some bravery, it needed a plan, and not a commitment to be afraid of pushing forward with things. And I think key to that is saying that road space is more than just the car. And that's exactly where we're going in terms of providing the right tools at the right time for the right people, making better decisions which are more informed and for better outcomes. And importantly, that being repeatable, because, well, who wants to reinvent the wheel every time you deploy to a customer? If you have an authority that's doing an incredible job and has found something that works in very, very well for them, you want them to be a lighthouse, a beacon for what their best practice looks like and to share, and for other authorities to want to learn and adapt to their own local needs to do that. And that's our approach and what I hope to see in future. And that's why I enjoy what I do and why we're having this call right now. So,
And Paul?
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, I'll go for a shorter answer, and I'll say that TRL, our tagline is the future of transport. You can see it there on the background on the screen. We're 90 years old this week. It's happy birthday to us week this week. So we've been all about the future of transport for all of those years, and we're a purpose-driven social enterprise. Every penny we make in profit is reinvested in making transport better, so safer, cleaner, more environmentally friendly, and goes into the R&D budgets to make our software better, more performant, and bring all those features that we've discussed today through. So making transport better, however it looks in the future. We don't have crystal balls, but we'll help deliver better transport in the future.
And just to finish off, we've got 2 more weeks until applications for the £20 million of Greenlight Fund must be delivered. Remind us again how local authorities looking to get their hands on a share of that money can get some help from you.
Yes, I would say that TRL can help elevate and differentiate their local authorities' bids. Clearly, for the Greenlight Fund, the message was upgrading at signal sites, including upgrading the Scoot and the mover side of things. So our Scoot 7 is clearly the upgrade path. We've got Scoot 8 to come with all its AI features for the next pot of funding. But yeah, we're ready, and we really want to help local authorities elevate and differentiate their bids with TRL Scoot.
That's TRL's account director, Paul May, joined by TRL Software's chief scientist, Chris Cattell, here talking to you about pot 2. Paul just mentioned pot 3. We will have another one of these webinars in the new year to talk more about some of the solutions there. But for now, thank you very much for watching this. I hope you found it helpful and informative, and I'll leave you with some details on the screen of how you can get in touch with Paul. But for now, thank you to Paul and Chris for being part of this webinar, and we'll talk to you again soon.